My name is Heng. Today is Saturday, August 24th. I'm here in the Gold Coast of Queensland, and today we're going to be continuing our series investigating the picture biography, the life of Master Xuyun, Master Empty Cloud. And gratitude to our Chinese translators, gratitude to our Vietnamese translators, and gratitude to our tireless coordinator and recording secretary who keeps everybody up to date on what's happening, and to all the folks through whose efforts this lecture gets out to the world on the internet. So we have today from Henan Tian Zhuang, who's going to do the Dharma request. So let me ring the bell 3 times, and from right where I'm sitting, I'm going to make 3 half bows and invite you who'd like to, please join me and do the same. 我们离三文行三文熏礼. And then after the bows, we'll ask Tian Zhuang to do the Dharma request. Here we go. First bow. And the second bow. Third bow. Tian Zhuang, 请你先请法。
老师阿弥陀佛, this is Chen Yu. I'll do it today.
Okay.
恭请大德僧听，为此法会集一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐。速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and endure birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahari samya samputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samya samputoshye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All righty, thank you for the Dharma request. We appreciate that. And we'd like to continue with our acknowledgement of country to say that we respectfully acknowledge the Kombu-Meri people of the Ugambi language region as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where this monastery is located. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. 就是说，我们恭敬地承认与甘贝语族的贡布马里人，他们是我们虽然所在地的传统叙事和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从来没有放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。All right, we can ring the bells together, Sam, and see how they sound. Bells sound wide, resounds Throughout 100 million worlds, the Buddha's law is heard and spread. All throughout the triple world, the wondrous sound that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000劫内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训其法界和平，利益报他诺厚德。Yes, indeed. And one of these days we'll have a beautiful Chinese version so that you can hear how monks do it in China when it's done right. So that'll be coming up in the future. So, yes. Now, if you would like to hear a Vietnamese translation of my lecture today, go to the chat box. You'll see a link to where you'll find the Vietnamese translation. And those of you who would, 如果各位呢，你们想听一听这个流利的普通话的翻译，那个控制板的右下角那边右手边，在下边你们可以看到这个地球 interpretation 就有 Chinese。Click，然后你可以听到普通话的翻译。Alrighty. Now, if anybody would like to be a Dharma requester, our tireless corresponding secretary Chen Yu will have the method by which you can sign up to request Dharma. It's fun. It's painless. You gain respect in the invisible world of the spirit, and you'll feel good about helping me turn the Dharma wheel by taking your turn to Qing Fa. So please do take a look, and we'll let you know. Now, I need folks to know that next weekend, I will be traveling. I'm heading to Vancouver for Gold Buddha's 40th anniversary and the dedication of their new space there. So this lecture, I'm not certain whether I will be in the air at this time, and if possible, I will be happy to lecture. If not, next week we'll take a break because I will be traveling. So please check your email, and Chen Yu will be happy to let you know whether we're going to take a break for a week while I'm in Vancouver, because I'll be traveling at that time. So can't say yes or no yet, but we'll let you know by email. And our audience today, I'm here in the Gold Coast, and our coordinator, co-host, is in Ukiah. The co-hosts, plural. Our interpreter, translator, is right here in the Gold Coast with me. We have friends in Ukiah, and Cascade, Colorado, and Campbell, California, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Los Angeles, Sunnyvale, Alameda, Saratoga, Montreal. Let's see here, New York City. Where else? Portland, Oregon. Okay, and let's see here, Ukiah and Northern California and New York City, Los Altos, Seattle, Kuala Lumpur. We have a couple Jins in Berkeley here. We have a listener in Taipei. Jin Yongshi has joined us from Taipei. Good, welcome. Where else here? Los Angeles, Stockton, New York City, Chinatown, Singapore, Bay Area, St. Petersburg, Florida, Taipei, Alameda, Manila, the Philippines, hi Nini, Mesa, Arizona, Memphis, Tennessee, all right, Vancouver, where else? Seattle, Dharma Ram Buddhist University, San Jose, Alameda, San Leandro, excellent. Let's see here, I don't know where Valerie is. Valerie, I think you're in San Jose, if I'm not mistaken. So Virginia, and where else? Taipei, 包头市, Taichung, 欢迎. Harbin, 杭州, 还有哪里？什么地方？就说深圳、南海，let's see here, 盐城，江苏盐城，深圳、大连，悉尼， Harbin, 黑龙江. Let's see here. 沿海继续北京哪里陕西宝鸡 OK 黑龙江深圳人多嘛河南Harbin 深圳哇深圳的就要听佛法的人多北京哪里Harbin 南京鸡西辽宁广东上海 and 湖北OK So, welcome everybody. Glad you're here. Now, there's something magical happening. Let's read it, and I'll do my best to explain it, although it's truly magical and hard to explain, but sometimes the Buddha Dharma is just that way. Let's see here. Okay. Excellent. Hold on here. There we go. What is it? It's Da Lo Ding, the great conch shell mountain peak. And the lamps of wisdom on Da Lo, it's the spiral like a conch shell that you blow, that kind of Lo. Our teacher is 45 years old. It's 1884. And he has just completed his pilgrimage. Here we go. 上大罗顶，拜智慧灯。第一夜无所见，二夜见北台顶。一团火飞中台落，分10余团，大小不同。三夜见中台空中散团火，飞上飞下，北台又现，4、5处火团，一飞上飞下。各处交流，大小不一。The master climbed up Da Luo Peak and bowed to the lamps of wisdom. During the first night of his stay, he saw nothing unusual. But on the second night, he beheld a ball of fire as it flew up from the north peak and down at the central peak. There it divided into at least 10 flaming spheres of different sizes. On the third night of his stay, he witnessed 3 fireballs floating in the sky around the central peak, and 4 or 5 more, both large and small, soaring in the vicinity of the north peak. Now, what in the world is going on? There's this marvelous phenomenon at Wu Taishan, which it's interesting because it's one of those phenomenon that you have to, so how do we explain it? There is, I have my theory, which I'll share with everybody. It's nature, what in Chinese, they've always said, 天地人, sky above, the earth below, and humanity in between, in the middle. And here's our illustration. And the idea is that heaven, earth, and humanity are 3 but 1. Some Chinese scholars call it a trinyan, meaning a triple union, 3 things together. And they're distinct, and yet together they form a unity until one of the 3 doesn't do its job. And of course, you know which one is the most fallible, right? It's the human part. So when all 3 things, heaven, earth, and humanity, are in harmony, and each one is doing its proper utmost to fulfill its assigned role, wonderful things can happen. And what you might call miracles, but are not miraculous because they're actually completely within cause and effect. So what is a miracle? A miracle is something that appears to be uncaused, or it's caused by invisible things that is actually a cause, but you can't see it. So we say, well, it's magic, right? In fact, it's not. There's a cause there. So that would be a kind of a spiritual thing. In the Roman Catholic faith, they have miracles, and often when something miraculous and wonderful happens, like someone who shouldn't get healed becomes healthy again, they point to some individual and say, this is a saint. And because the saint has uncommon gongde, virtue or blessings or the power of goodness in their heart, therefore miracles happen. And in order to be sainted in the Catholic Church, there has to be a miracle. And they look high and low for a miracle. A statue bleeds from the eyes, or water comes out of a rock, or someone who was blind can see, right? These are miracles. Now, the Buddhists have a language for that. We say gongde, the merit and the virtue, which results from what? Not from a miracle that cannot be explained. In fact, it's still cause and effect. It's from cultivation. So the Buddhist theory says, in our nature, our Buddha nature, that every living being has a full measure of, there is light. The reason we don't see that light and don't know about it is because we cover it up with what is called ignorance, wuming. And it's not that you don't have it, it's that it doesn't function. It's not that I'm lacking it, it's just that my wuming, my ignorance, my attachments, my false thinking, my emotions, my desires, my biases, my prejudices, all cover it over. And my afflictions, the troubles in my life. So cultivation is the process of uncovering our nature. When someone has done that through hard work, there is a light that people, in the Taoist tradition, they say Tao De, the virtue of the Tao, is the only power that can actually move and cut without doing any harming. So when that happens, and we plug that into the Tian Di Ren, when a human does something extraordinary, heaven and earth respond in extraordinary ways. Everybody following so far that it's this, what I'm trying to give evidence for is the idea that miracles can still be entirely in cause and effect, but the cause is an extraordinary cause. And if humanity does its part, there can be extraordinary results. 大罗顶拜智慧灯，人皆来此问前程。初无所见，九自现，唯有大小各不同. The master bowed to the wisdom lamps on top of Daluo Peak. People often came to this spot to foretell their future. At first there was nothing unusual, but then they all appeared, large, small, in between. Each fireball was unique. Okay, there on Wutaishan, he is still in the vicinity. You remember just before, last week, he went out and bowed to all the different peaks, and then he joined the Buddha Assembly of Fa Hui at Wutaishan and meditated again for a long time. But the gongda, the merit and the virtue for having bowed for 3 years to repay his parents' kindness, was with him. He carried that energy. And there is a tradition that says there on Wutaishan, there's a special thing that certain people can instigate, can provoke when their virtue is sufficient. So what is it? These things called sheng, deng, sheng, guang, they're called sages' lights, sages' lanterns, or wisdom lanterns appear in the sky at night. And depending on the quality and the amount of virtue of the person who is hoping for them to appear, that's how many lamps and lights appear. Does it happen often? It really does not. In fact, we tried in the last couple of weeks to do research to find how many stories of the Zhihui Deng we could find. I tell you, they are rare. They're hard to find. Master Empty Cloud, of course, heard about the Gongde Guang, the Gongde Deng, the Zhihui Deng, the Sheng Deng. He heard about these, it's legend, it's Buddhist legend. And he thought, try it out. And sure enough, there he was. It says the first night, what happened? Nothing, first night. And he was there, and he spent the day and the night. Wu Taishan is this hugely remote valley with 4 mountains on all sides, and then the central peak. And there's just really, when you say nothing, there's nothing there. These are barren hills, no forests, and you've seen them. There's a lot of snow for half the year. But there he was, he spent a second night, and this ball of fire shows up. And then 10 flaming lights in the sky. And then a third night, 3 fireballs, and then 5 more, large and small. So he was someone who could provoke nature to respond with what is distinctly not magic. It's gongda, it's his merit and virtue. Okay, now, what do y'all think? Is this like, some people would go, yeah, right, prove it. Anybody else see it? Did you get any photos? Anybody take a video? Right? Is it on YouTube? So let's get a TikTok out of this. So actually, this was when? 1884, sorry. 1884. None of those recording devices existed, except maybe the best one. People saw enough to tell the story and say, yeah, Master Empty Cloud's virtue could provoke this kind of wonderful, wonderful response. Now, if my principle is true, if this theory of where, quote, miracles come from, then how about the saying that's pretty widespread that wherever there's a war, for 7 years after a war, the battlefields are infertile, that the crops don't grow the way, and nature is disrupted. Because why? This is a particularly horrific cause. So Tian Di Ren, heaven, earth, and humanity, when humanity really, really misbehaves, doing something that everybody abhors, which is large-scale killing, nature also responds. So that's interesting to think, does it work both ways? Can it be extremely virtuous and extremely evil? Does nature respond? Well, there are episodes that would maybe suggest that was the case. I've got some interesting other here we are.
哎，我是后面这你搁这你搁这坐着吧。
Here we go. Okay. Maybe we
Hello.
can we mute, huh? Let's see here. Lecture bio notes. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm going to tell another story that some of us, if you follow my lecture on chapter 25 of the Avatamsaka, which is Shi Hui Shangping, you have heard this story. But if not, I want to share it because it's truly one of those wonderful stories. I intersperse my lectures on the 10 Transferences chapter with the biography of Master Xuyun. And what I have here, as it's kind of like dessert after, if you're a good boy and girl and you eat your green beans and your potatoes, we'll let you eat dessert, right? So if you listen to the sutra, we give you something remarkable, which are these stories of Master Empty Cloud's pilgrimage to India to get the sutras, and then he brought them back and translated them. So those of you who know that I'm doing this will have caught up. This is the source of the Ming Dynasty novel called Xi You Ji, right? And I have to say it every time. I have to be clear about this. Xi You Ji is a novel. It's a 小说. This is from the imagination of a novelist. It's not true, in quotes. So there's Monkey, the Monkey King, and Sha Sung, Sandy, and Zhu Bajie, Pigsy, and all. So some people would think, well, that's entertainment. Well, it's entertaining, but it's based on a real Chinese Buddhist pilgrim hero whose name was Master Xuyun. Now, the story of his pilgrimage is it's better than the novel. I mean, the things that he encountered and what he overcame in order to accomplish his vow. And, as they say, pretty much Chinese history celebrates three great pilgrims, Master Xuyun, and the other two who made it. But there were hundreds of pilgrims who tried to travel back to the Buddha's Holy Land, India, but they left their bones at the bottom of steep canyons in the Himalayas, or they were killed by sandstorms on the Taklamakan Desert, right? So Master Xuyun was one of the three famous pilgrims who got to India and came back to tell his story. Okay, so we have heard now about, I'm going to close this, we have heard about how Master Xuyun was able to stimulate the heavens to light up the wisdom lamps, right? And how incredible they were in the sky. And there are very few accounts of other people who had sufficient virtue. So they're hard to find similar stories, but he was one who did. And we already know what? We already know that his virtue was enough to inspire Manjushri Bodhisattva to come and save his life twice. So Master Empty Cloud is truly a remarkable monk. Now, there are other examples of similar, now this is not Chi Hui Deng, but it's sort of the same. So I'm going to tell you that story now because it's truly inspiring and it's historic. It happened. It's factual. And it's also a good advertisement so that you'll all listen in to my 10 Transferences lecture, right? So, which is going to happen Monday at 12:30 here in the Gold Coast, 10:30 in China and Taiwan, and 7:30 on Sunday night at the City of 10,000 Buddhas, because that's it is my spot in the rotation of lectures at CTTB. Okay, here we go. Master Xuyun is traveling. He's in a place called Dipankara City, which is north of Afghanistan. He's actually in the north of Afghanistan. He's not quite where Afghanistan meets Pakistan. He's in that area. He hasn't reached India yet, but he's through the worst of the tall mountains. Okay, so he's past, people know Bamiyan, where the tall Buddhas were and then were destroyed. He's south of there, so that's where it was. Okay, traveling along, everywhere Master Xuyun went, he asked about the history. What wonderful things happened here that I should know about, because I'm gathering information about Zhengfa, right Dharma, to take back to China. So please tell me any amazing stories, any legends, show me any of the relics that are here. And so he has just now reached within the area of where the Buddha actually traveled. 2000, let's see, this is the Tang Dynasty, so it was 1,000 years earlier, 900 years earlier, the Buddha had on foot reached this area in his 49 years of traveling. So what happened? Here's the Chinese, and this is really difficult classical Chinese. So we'll read it, and those of you who have an ability with classical Chinese can enjoy it here. 又闻灯光城西南20余里，有须波罗龙王所住之窟，如来昔日降伏此龙，因流影在中。法师欲望礼拜，称其道路荒阻，又多盗贼。2、3年来，人往多不得见，已故去者悉书。Okay, so everybody who can read it follow. So let's look at the English. He was told that at a distance of more than 20 li to the southwest of Dipankara city, there was a cave where the dragon king Gopala had lived. The Buddha subdued the dragon and left his shadow in the cave. You all got that much, right? The master wanted to go see it, but the road was hard to find, and there were robbers and thieves and bandits on the road. Most of the people who had gone there in recent years hadn't seen the shadow, so basically nobody went anymore. Number one, you wouldn't necessarily see the shadow. Number two, for sure you'd be robbed by the bandits. So who would go up to see the dragon cave where the Buddha left his shadow? Only crazy people or real committed monks, right? Okay, so this is the setup. This is the story. It's a mountain cave. A dragon lived there in the Buddha's time, 900 years previous. The Buddha went there, subdued the dragon, and then left his shadow in the cave. So the legend was, if you could go to the cave and had that virtue that we talked about, the virtue that inspired the wisdom lamps, then you could see the Buddha's shadow. Okay, everybody got the setup? So our monk, being a hardcore pilgrim, he's come all this way, he wants to see what there is to see. 法师欲望礼拜，释迦必施果所送使人，贪其素欢，不愿言柳，劝不令去。我们法师师父，我们不去吧，我们图书馆有书要换啊，我要问我母亲啊，身体还安康否？不去吧，啊，很多理由啊。法师抱曰：如来真身之影，一劫难逢，宁有至此不往里拜呢？一定要的。汝等且渐进，我暂到即来，等一等，我快去快回，你们等一等，不必回去了。When the master announced his intention of visiting the Buddha's shadow, of course, this is something he would do. The guides who escorted him from the country of Kapisa said, don't go. We need to go back. No reason to stick around long. They didn't want to get robbed. They didn't want to climb the mountain, go to the cave, and lose their way, right? The master said, this is the shadow of the Buddha's true body, which has rarely been seen for innumerable eons. I've come all this way. What are the chances I'm not going to go? 0. I'm going to go. You can go slowly ahead. I'll go battle the shadow and come right back. All right? He's trying to keep him in his group, but he's definitely going to go try to see the shadow. 于是独去，至灯光城 入一切难为放途路，密人相引，不一肯者。啊，一个都没有。后见一小孩云：四庄金笔晋松师道庄，居同处道庄宿。So he himself, on his own, went off to Dipankara city, the city of lamps. He entered the monastery to ask, where's the path up to the cave, and is there anybody who will guide me there? Not even one. No, we all forgot it. Never mind, right? Afterwards, he met a young boy who said, I know how to get there. I'll take you there. So Master Xuan went with the child to the village, and he spent the night. So now he's not far from the cave, but he still has to climb the mountain. This is where the danger comes in. 得一老人至其处所，相因而发，行数里，又五贼来拔人而至。法师即去貌，现其法服。They found an old man who knew where the path to the cave was. And they said, please lead the way. So he's got an old man and a young boy in his party, all by himself otherwise. Having gone a short distance, 5 robbers appear, coming out with knives in their hands. And Master Xuan takes his hat off and says, monk, monk. 贼云是欲何处何去？答欲礼拜佛矣。贼云：是不闻此有贼耶？你不知道这里有土匪吗？答云：贼者人也。今为礼佛，虽梦受迎去，庄有不惧，况叹月之被世人乎？贼遂发心，随往礼拜。Amazing. So, Master says, I'm a monk. You don't want to rob me. The robber said, where are you going? Master Xuan says, I want to go bow to the Buddha's shadow. The robber says, you didn't know there were robbers here? You didn't hear about us? Right? Aren't you afraid? He says, robbers are also people. I'm going to go pay homage to the Buddha. You tell me there are lions and tigers up there, I'm still going to go. Why would I be afraid? You're people. Right? So in hearing this, the robbers go, we'll go with you. We're going to go. Come on, lead the way. I love it. Okay. 机智枯所，苦在实践东壁，门向西开，窥之杳冥，一无所视，一无所睹，什么都看不见。老人晕，时直入，触东壁气，却行50步许，正东而观，隐在其处。Arriving at the cave, he saw it was on a rock at the east side of a valley with its entrance opening to the west. So they came down, they saw a valley, and up above, there's this hole with a big rock out the front door. That's the cave. The old man says, okay, you go straight in, walk 50 paces, and you'll touch the eastern wall. Then you look to the eastern side of that, and the shadow is there. That's where you see the shadow. So, what does our monk do? He does exactly that. 法师入，信足而前，可50步。Completely dark， 黑黑暗暗的，暗暗洞洞的。果出东壁气，却立至诚而礼拜与拜，礼拜与拜，一无所见。The master entered the cave. He walked for 50 paces in jet black, utter black. He's counting 31, 32, 33. He goes and he touches the eastern wall. That's as far as he can go. He stands there, and as he was told, he started to bow with a sincere mind, but he couldn't see anything. 什么都看不见。自子障累， 悲号傲乎，更知心礼诵，上慢等诸经，赞佛即诵，随赞随礼。如果是你，应该怎么办呢？什么都看不到，黑暗。OK， 怎么办？ What would you do? He couldn't see anything. He made 100 bows. He bowed 100 times. Couldn't see a thing. So he said, this is my fault. I have bad karma. I have obstacles. That's why I can't see the Buddha's shadow. And he cries. He came all the way there. His heart is sincere, but no response. So he said, okay, I'm not giving up. 他不放弃. He recited with a sincere mind the stanzas in praise of the Buddha in the Srimala Devi Shimahananda Sutra, which is the Lion's Roar Sutra of Queen Srimala Devi. And he recites other scriptures from his mind. He memorized, just like at Fan Yin Dong at Putoshan. If you recite the Pumenpin, the Buddha Guan Yin will appear. Okay, what happens next? 复白与拜，见洞壁，现汝波许大光，树而海灭，悲喜更离，复有潘许大光现，现已海灭，没有了。一增感慕，自赞若不见世尊影，终不以此地。如果看不到，我不离开，我就在这里，就继续拜啊。So he recited the stanzas. He made prostrations. He had again bowed 100 times, now 200 bows at this point. He saw on the eastern wall a light as large as an eating bowl. So a light this big shows up, which then disappeared. Oh, now he's excited. Now he's delighted. He bows again, and a bright light as large as a dish reappeared and then disappeared again. So now his faith is doubled, and his admiration. He vowed that he would not leave this place if he doesn't see the Buddha's shadow. He's a hard case, right? You say he's got some hard bark on him. 如是更200余拜，随一窟大明，见如来影，皎然在壁，如开云雾，忽睹金山，妙相西容，审自黄玉，瞻仰庆悦，不知所辟。He made 200 more bows, 400 bows at this point. The whole cave suddenly lit up. He saw the Buddha's shadow distinctly on the wall, just like a golden mountain appearing when the fog is burned away. The shadow was lustrous with a bright and divine appearance. He was so happy to have seen the Buddha's shadow. His happiness was beyond compare. No way to express the joy in his heart of having a miracle. Here's where it gets very interesting. Is this heaven and earth and humanity? You have to add one more element to our formula, which is called Sheng, the sublime virtue. When it's the Buddha's vows and you're only 900 years away from the Buddha's Sheng Gongda, Shu Sheng Gongda. That's one more. There's heaven, there's earth, there's humanity, and then there's sages. And when you have a sage, someone whose nature is entirely awake, and they make a vow, as the Buddha did when he subdued the dragon, then miracles, quote, can happen. 就说你说是天还是地还是人吗？我们要加一个成分，就说圣功德，这是殊胜的。佛呢是圣人，他的功德是殊胜的功德。他降服这个龙，然后发愿呢留他的影子，那可以啊。你如果行这个法，那个果报感应道教 ，right？ 能力所理心空机，感应道教难思议。Okay, as they say, the worshipper and the worshipped by nature are empty and still, but the way and the response intertwine inconceivably. Okay. So you have to decide, is it a miracle or is it actually cause and effect? 还是各位你们要决定是奇迹啊，就是没有因没有就是有果，还是上功德是还在因果里边了啊？殊胜因有殊胜果。佛身及袈裟，并赤黄色，自膝以上，相好其名，花座以下，少似为媚。其左右即背后菩萨、圣僧等迎，以皆具有。The Buddha's body and his robe were reddish yellow in color. Above the knee, the figure was perfectly distinct. Below the knees, below the lotus seat, a little bit blurry. The shadows of the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhats who stood to the left and right and his back were all there. Okay, so think about cave paintings, Dunhuang, and the statues at Longmen, Shiku, and places like that. People wonder, how could these images be so large? How could they be so tall up on the side of the walls of the cave? How did the artists see and bring in the colors that last to this day? Maybe it was done with the same kind of shadow merit and virtue. Maybe, who knows? Science has a hard time describing how these marvelous cave art appeared. So how did the shadow appear? Interesting. 谁去中国那些好像莫高窟啊，或者那个龙门窟啊，这个龙门石窟，这些有这个壁画哦，这么大，这么奇妙，飞天呐这些颜色啊，他们科学很难解释，是不是跟佛留下他的影子一样？有殊胜功德在内，有可能。Okay, now watch what happens next. This is some of the best part of the story. 见已遥命门外六人，将火入烧香。他们听到里边这个声音，玄奘大师在那儿哭，在那儿叫。避火至，忽然佛音还隐 ，gone， 没有了。即令绝火，把这个火炬熄灭。你们不懂，更请方奈重现。六人中无人得见，一人竟无所度，特别重的这个业障。So, having seen the shadow, Master Xuyun Lecture said to the 6 people outside the cave, "Come on in, light some incense." They brought in a torch, and the Buddha's shadow disappeared. Oh my God! So this miraculous, this wonderful thing. You've now ruined it. Nope. He said, "Put out the torch." He started to bow again. The Buddha's shadow is back. 5 of the 6 men could see the shadow. One of them couldn't see anything. Who do you suppose he was? Maybe he was the head robber, the 大头 of the group. 汝是可办实情，寥寥明见，得生礼赞，共三花香气，光灭而乃此出。所诵婆罗门欢喜，叹为曾有云：非是至诚，愿力之后，无此无至此也。It was distinctly visible for the time of half a meal, and the light disappeared after they had bowed, praised, and offered flowers and incense to the shadow. They all came out of the cave at that point. And the Brahmin, the old man who led the way, was so happy. He said he had never seen it in his lifetime. He said it's only because this monk's sincerity and his willpower. If it wasn't for that, we still would never have seen it. Okay, So look at this, the old man who's not a Buddhist, he's a Brahmin, and yet he recognizes why finally the miracle came to be, and it's because of a monk with virtue. Just like the 智慧灯 on Daluo Peak with Master Empty Cloud. His virtue, the legend was there for a long time, but it takes somebody with very special cultivation and virtue he provides 天地人, heaven, earth, and humanity. When the humanity comes up with 殊胜功德, really special virtue, then heaven and earth can also respond with something set in motion by the Buddha's awesome, sublime causes. Okay, so how wonderful to have the story of two pilgrims, Master Xuyun and Master Empty Cloud, both instigating or stimulating this miraculous response. Okay, now check this out. 窟门外更有众多僧妓说如别传，相遇归还，必无贼皆回道场，受戒而别。Outside the cave were many more holy sites, and when they returned back down to the village, the 5 robbers destroyed their weapons and went away, and after receiving the precepts from the master. So what did they do? These guys had enough good roots that they recognized something special had just happened. And so they took their weapons, their AR-15s with the bump stocks and their Glocks, and they trashed them and said, "Could we be your disciples? We would like to take refuge and take the precepts." Master Xuyun says, "Sure, no problem, but just don't hurt people anymore. Leave your weapons where you ruined or you destroyed them." So they did that. They followed instructions, 依教奉行, and took the precepts and the refuges and went off. Their lives totally changed from having met this incredible monk. How about that? Great story, huh? So this is not the picture biography of Master Empty Cloud. It is instead the story of another pilgrim whose virtue was sufficient to not only move the legend into reality, but also inspired men who had embarked on a life of crime to give up their evil ways and become good. Just amazing. What have I got on my screen? Everybody can see. This is actually another sage. This is Confucius. And what has he got on his lap? He's playing the guqian. And over here is a teacher whose name is Heng. And Heng was teaching Confucius how to play the guqian. And he taught him, and Confucius learned the first tune. And Heng said, "You played it well. It's okay. Ready for the second tune. You're good with that one. Let's teach you some more repertoire." And Confucius says, "No, I don't need any more. Why be greedy?" He says, "When I play these notes, they vibrate forever through the universe. I don't need more." "Why do you need more? This is music." He said, "We're vibrating the universe." So, wonderful anecdote of Heng's Guqian disciple Confucius and how he treated music. 就说这个香哈要教他第2个曲子，孔老夫子说不用了，这都是音乐嘛，我不要弹琴，你能把这个弦子摆动那够了，不必多，多就弹了。Oh, I love that. Okay. So, my goodness, let's review some of the things we've said today, which are that next week, please check your email, because I don't know for sure whether I'll be able to, whether I will have landed in Vancouver or not. I might still be at the airport or even in flight, and I won't be able to continue our stories until I confirm the schedule, all right? But if I certainly can, I will certainly be here to explain. If not, next week for sure. Meanwhile, tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. in California, 12:30 p.m. here in Australia, 10:30 a.m. in China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, and other places, Vietnam, will be a lecture on Ru Fa Jie Pin, the chapter on entering the Dharma realm, merging with the universe of the Avatamsaka Sutra. Then, the next day, which is Sunday night in California, Monday noon here in the Gold Coast, 10:30 in the morning in China, etc., is the Shi Hui Xiang Pin, and stories of Master Xuanzang's pilgrimage, like the one we just heard. Alrighty, so please do tune in and join us. And we just finished Ulambana. We learned a whole lot about Ulambana and recited the sutra and gave everybody an opportunity to make offerings. How wonderful. All right. So we're going to now dedicate merit ourselves and move on with our day. Let's do our Medicine Buddha mantra. And we were out today in the mall, and not a single person had a mask on, and yet we know there was COVID in the halls of the shopping center. People are just kind of living with it. But it hasn't gone away. So let's recite this mantra and see if we can't affect the causes of that plague that took so many lives while it was at its strength. You can certainly dedicate merit anywhere you'd like to. Thank you all for joining. Look forward to seeing you, if not next week, then the following week, for more of the picture biography of Master Empty Cloud. Samyak Sambuddhaya